As some of you guys will know by now, I am really seriously considering moving to America. Like, it's got to the point now where, although I love London life, my family, my friends, everything that comes with it, just the cost of everything when it comes to like property, when it comes to the disgusting wages that you get paid here, when it comes to the ever increasing cost of everything like food, electricity bills, petrol, everything is just going one way. And it's just really making me want to make the move. But I think that I need something like this. And shout out to the Tudor Yank, by the way. If you get to watch this reaction, your channel is amazing. I'm going to link her channel in the description. I need to kind of get a gauge on what it actually costs to live in America, because here there's just so many bills that unless you live here, you would never know we have to pay. We have to pay council tax. We have to pay TV license. We pay VAT on everything. We pay gas and electric, obviously, but our gas and electric bills are way higher than those in the States for sure. There's other things that I'm forgetting, but we just pay for so many things. But what are the equivalent costs in the States? Like, what are the things that I really don't know that I'd have to pay for that make this bigger salary that I would make in America, kind of equal to what I'd make here in terms of all the things that I'd be paying for, like health insurance and stuff?
This is a story about money and how much of it disappears when you decide to simply exist. As you might know, I moved to London from Los Angeles, and
Wow. So she made the move in the other
I
direction.
thought, what better topic than to break down the cost of living between the two? But I'm also going to break down the cost of living between my university town in Indiana and the city of Derby, which is a comparable size here in the UK.
Awesome.
The differences are strange, peculiar even. Like a team of lobotomized pigeons came up with the whole system. Strap in, or don't strap in because seatbelts cost extra in America, as we break down the cost of living between the US and the UK.
Let's go.
First, let's cover one of the most important things: food. Kind
Mm.
of all need that to live, right? The daily ritual of buying things that will eventually turn into mold if you don't eat them in time. In Los Angeles, grocery shopping feels similar to war, except not quite like the war in other states where you have open carry laws and you could be going to buy a loaf of bread next to someone with a giant gun for no reason. I guess somebody has to fight off the mice from Ratatouille in the grocery store. In the UK, going to the supermarket doesn't really feel like a war. It just is a mild inconvenience that you have to do often since your food is not made out of plastic like America.
Yeah. I mean, here you probably have to go grocery shopping. I go probably every 2, 3 days. Like, I go every 2, 3 days because I don't really buy huge amounts. I just buy for myself and whoever's going to be, eating with me on a particular day. Food goes bad, you know, pretty quick.
In Los Angeles, shopping for two people can add up to about $250 to $300 each week, easily,
Whoa.
and that's being modest with what you buy, and including some of the plastic food America has to offer. In London,
250 to 300 a week? No way. Like, you must be shopping in like the most bougie grocery stores for those kind of
the
prices.
same amount of groceries usually cost between £80 to £120, unless, of course, you go to Waitrose where you're paying for the designer lighting.
Mm.
Meanwhile, we're going to discuss my old uni town, Evansville, Indiana, and I bring it up as the comparison because I think comparing two major metropolitan cities is a pretty unfair comparison for most people watching this.
Is it really that expensive to go grocery shopping in LA? $300 for two people. That is insane.
Of course, Los Angeles is expensive. Of course, London is expensive. Oddly, London is slightly cheaper, even though the population density is much higher,
Mm.
and you would think that competition alone would be enough, but that's why we're here to break it down. So we're going to compare Evansville. It is a population of 117,000 people, and the city of Derby, UK, which is a little over 200,000, but it was the closest comparable city I could find to my
Mm,
university town, which was the first city I lived in completely on my own at the age of 18. So I feel like this is a fair comparison versus my hometown, which I had the luxury of living with my family before I turned 18.
right.
So it wins by the cheapest, as at 12, I'm not really paying rent or buying groceries. My Mimo is taking care of that for me. Now, you might be shocked to learn this. Like I said, we're doing Evansville. I lived in Evansville from 2005 to 2009 before moving to Los Angeles. So I've updated the numbers for inflation. But even taking inflation into account,
Wow.
my college town
So it's still way more expensive in Evansville. That's insane.
of Evansville, again, this town touches the border of my hometown in the state of Kentucky. So even though it is a different state, it is a whole whopping 20-minute drive away from my hometown.
Hmm.
But when I moved to Los Angeles from Evansville, Indiana, I was shocked to learn groceries were actually cheaper in California. You may not know this, but
Wow.
roughly around 60% of the produce for America is grown in the state of California. So a lot of things are not
Oh.
shipped far.
I thought a lot of stuff was grown in Texas. I thought, and oh God, is it Montana where there's like a lot of like cattle ranches and stuff? I didn't know it was California that grew a lot of produce.
Thus, your price for groceries in California can be significantly cheaper than in what is the green belt of America that you associate with cornfields and farms.
Wow,
But most
that's
of these farms are
unbelievable.
growing soybeans and other crops to sell for feed to other countries or within their own country, but are rarely actually producing food for human consumption. So even
Mm.
though you're growing up next door to a cornfield, that corn is meant for a cow 500 miles away. In our comparison town to Evansville, Derby, UK, yeah, groceries are really fairly cheap, and what I could find online, cheaper than London, clearly,
Mm.
still much cheaper than LA, and not impossible to afford on a single income. So, of course, the UK wins this round because food is actually significantly cheaper than it is in the States.
Super surprising, super surprising. Okay, so based on the graphic she showed, food looks like it's almost half the cost. Let's say a good 30-40% cheaper than in the US. Okay, that's something to consider for sure.
And bonus points for not being made out of plastic. You have far tighter food regulations, and I know everyone complains about the price of groceries. That is a universal, no matter what language or country you're in, that is a complaint everyone has. But you guys have much cheaper groceries than in the States. So good
Hmm,
for you. Now let's
interesting.
discuss the transportation tango. You all have to get somewhere, and it's not COVID, and we can't all work from home full time anymore, unfortunately. That was a good part of it.
I don't know, man. Like with the whole work from home thing, I enjoyed it for a while, but I got bored. I think if I had a family, then as in like kids and stuff, working from home all the time would be great. But, as a young guy who was like wanting to go out, have fun with his friends and stuff, date, yeah, it wasn't that great. It wasn't that great.
In America, a car is not just a car, it's an emotional support machine that you have to pay for monthly, and sometimes more expensive than therapy. In LA,
Jeez.
where you have to clearly have a car so you don't live in the Mojave Desert and trapped, my car payment was $315 a month, and that was for a 2018 Toyota Prius.
318 for a 2018 car. I mean, that's not too bad. What's the insurance though?
My car insurance was $170 a month, and
Whew.
that was a huge thing when I moved here. When my cousins would discuss how much their car insurance
170 a month. Maybe she had accidents or something before, which put her premium up. That's
was,
insane.
I thought they meant those were the monthly fees, not £500 for the year.
Yeah.
That is insane. Your car insurance is even cheaper here than in the States. And I had a
What?
good deal at $170 a month for my car insurance.
How much are you guys paying for your car insurance? What the hell? Like, I've not had a car for a year, and last time my insurance was 800 a month for a Fiesta. Yeah, I mean, car insurance is pretty cheap here. 800 a year, sorry, not a month.
Now, that doesn't even include the yearly tax for a car, as well as the smog test required, and the consistent cost of petrol, or gasoline if you're watching from America. And I know a lot of people here also complain about the cost of petrol. Okay, so in my home state of Kentucky, where there are basically zero guidelines about what you can pump into the air that is toxic, and you can at most get a fine for 10 years before you're forced to change that, clearly the petrol slash gasoline was much cheaper as it did not need to be refined because they don't care if you grow 5 extra arms. They see that as 5 extra arms you can work in the coal mine with. California does have more expensive petrol, but that is because it is severely regulated to make sure not to cause extra pollution in a highly densely populated area.
I see. Wow. So different states have different regs for gasoline in terms of how refined it is. I thought it was the same no matter what. Like if you went to a gas station in Indiana and one in New York, I thought it'd be the same gas that you'd be pumping into your car.
They don't want to have the great smog that you had here, so they've worked actively toward preventing that, even though in the 60s and 70s it did get pretty wild before we introduced unleaded gas. Now, you do gas per liter. Clearly, in the States, we do it by gallon and whatever other
Hmm.
made up number and metric system and measuring systems in general that we make up in America.
How many liters are in a gallon, sir? Nobody knows.
But when you convert that cost, what you would pay in London for a liter of gas,
It's like
convert
double.
that to gallons in the States, and you're actually paying the exact same cost as gas in California or New York City,
Oh.
which makes sense because, again, it's London. And like every major city, if you go outside of the major city, the petrol is cheaper.
I don't know. I remember when I was in California with my ex, where were we? We were in LA. I remember it was about $5 a gallon or like 4.80 something a gallon. And there's like 4 liters in a gallon. So that's like $1.20 per liter, which is about 90 pence a liter. And over here at the time, it was like £1.40 a liter. So we're talking 50% more.
You have to make cleaner forms when you have a higher densely populated area. That's the same universally. Thank goodness. Not in every country, but it is a good rule to have. So having no car here, clearly my costs are much lower than living in
Mm.
California with that. I just have to spend whatever I need for the tube or a train, and I actually get to do other things at the same time while I'm traveling versus purely playing Grand Theft Auto with my life, watching the police copter go over, and curious if I need to turn on the TV later to see that high speed chase that just went by me. You might be
She's pretty funny.
interested to learn that in the state of California, there are roughly 15 high speed chases every single day. So not only
What?
is it
No
incredibly
way.
expensive to drive in California and absolutely necessary, it is more terrifying as the speed limit is simply a suggestion. And if you do not keep going the speed limit, there are people with guns. It
15 high-speed chases a day. I wonder how many of them get away. Like, what's the success rate for the
was a
evaders?
huge problem during COVID. Road rage, while no traffic, was at an all time high. So I don't have to spend that much money. I get to arrive to my destination and I get to read a book at the same time. UK wins again. Now let's talk leisure. The price of pretending you're having fun while being social.
My experience of like restaurants are that most of them are cheaper in America. At least when you consider the size of the portions, like you get more for your money, but the tipping does kind of like push it higher. I remember in New York, again with my ex, we got the bill, we paid a tip of 20%, but didn't realize that we'd also paid service charge. So effectively, we tipped like 35% or 40% or something.
Because we all love leaving the house, right? Social is something I do. Social talk people. Yeah, I don't know. I'm talking to this phone right now, but yeah, the cost of leisure. A cinema ticket in LA is usually about $30, and that's not including the price of parking, which can easily be another $15 to $20.
You're
Dinner for two
joking.
people in LA, easily $100, and that's before your 20% tip. It's not compulsory, but it's also compulsory, and if you don't leave that tip, you will sure hear about it. But leave that tip. I know everyone hates that, and they talk about it when they visit America, but when you are a tipped employee in America, unless you're in the state of California or New York, you only make $2.15 per hour.
Which is insane. How is it legal, man, to pay someone $2.13 an hour?
Then you claim your tips at the end of the night. So if you're paid by a credit card, it is easily trackable to see how much you made.
How much can you make though? Like anybody who works as a tipped employee that's not in LA or New York, how much can you make in tips on a good week or a bad week? Is it worth it basically?
So even though you are making that $2.13 an hour, your paycheck is usually eaten up by taxes and you don't see anything. So truly, when you leave a tip, that is the income and the only income that server is making. And I
Wow.
hate that the servers get mad and yell at people, and it ends up with this thing where it shouldn't be customer against employee.
It should
It
be
should be employee
employer.
and customer
Yeah.
against the business.
Yeah.
Because a business should be able to pay their employees
A
fairly.
living
But
wage.
that's
Yeah,
how they
yeah.
keep you distracted. Now we're jumping back over here into London. A cinema ticket is roughly £15 to £20. I've seen some varying prices depending on if it's a new release.
Depends. The cinema near my family's house is £8 for a VIP ticket. Standard ticket's 5.99.
And you can go out to eat together, two people, for around £70
Yeah.
without the required 20% tip. So you can actually have a night out together, or a nice little quaint date night, stopping at a pub, having a delicious meal for far less of the price, far less of the stress, and you can actually enjoy those pints without having to worry of driving home because you clearly can't do that while drinking. So either one of you doesn't have any drinks and you pay extra for an Uber in the States, which are also incredibly more expensive and require tipping in the States.
Oof, it does seem like the cost of living is higher in America. But I guess, it depends. Like in a place like Texas, though, or like a state like Colorado or North Carolina, like some southern states, is it the same story?
Than in London. In London, you can just go out with your friends, get on the tube and go home and have a wonderful time. And because you can order half pints, you can make it even cheaper if you need. Now, comparing leisure between Evansville and Derby is pretty unfair because both cities seem to think going down to the shops before 5 p.m. is about the only leisure. But that is the point of a small town. They're not looking for the night out, they're looking for relaxation. So those towns can stay on par with that. But here, the UK once again, specifically London. Now, the cost of healthcare.
I want to talk about accommodation. Like, I really want to hear talk about the cost of housing.
As we've discussed before, in America, healthcare is not care, it's a threat. In Los Angeles, my private insurance was about $800 a month. My prescriptions were $75 a month, and that does
Jesus.
not include the need for a copay every 3 months to renew my prescriptions, and does not include any emergencies that could arrive.
What is copay? What is that?
That is literally just trying to keep my homeostasis alive. In the UK, I pay about $275 per month for my NHS, and if my leg falls off and I have to go to the A&E, I know that they will try to reattach that before making me sign a credit card bill. Now, the cost of healthcare in Derby is obviously the same as London, since you have a system that works for the whole country and we're not fighting state laws and all these other silly things.
But if you get a job that includes healthcare as part of the compensation, do you still have to pay out of your own pocket or is it covered completely? Like, if I get some job, and they say, yeah, your health insurance is covered, what, like co-pays, like there's just so many words that I don't know the meaning of.
But I guess technically my healthcare was the cheapest in Evansville, Indiana, because I couldn't afford insurance and I didn't have a job that offered it. And I was a college student, so that's where I was. I waited tables. Clearly that job didn't offer insurance. So technically, yeah, I guess I saved the most on healthcare when I was just praying nothing happened. And I've stated this a million times. I know the NHS is not free, as I just stated what I pay monthly for it. It is that it is free at the point of use. So before you start leaving those comments saying the NHS ain't free, we all know. We know. It's more that you can go in bleeding to death, and the bleeding part will be addressed before your bank account is hit. Now let's discuss
If you are sick, though, do they actually check your insurance before they treat you? Or do they treat you and then give you the bill? How does that work?
the cost of higher education and trying to dig yourself out of poverty, and if that's a hole you're allowed to leave. Now, my old university, the University of Southern Indiana, cost $10,000 a semester in the year 2005. That's with what is called an in-state tuition discount. And as I've mentioned, I'm from Kentucky, but because our counties touched each other, Vanderburgh County in Indiana offered my county an in-state tuition discount, which is significant. Now, I would spend $10,000 a semester, with multiple books being over $1,000, because
Books? Books cost $1,000. What, like textbooks? She's got to be joking.
I was a biology major, and those lab textbooks sure aren't cheap. That same
grand?
university today for in-state tuition is $15,000 a
Ain't no way. There's no way a textbook is costing $1,000. I don't believe it.
semester, and I can't imagine that the textbooks that were clearly made out of shredded unicorns are less than $1,000. And they make you buy the
Why?
textbooks. You can't do a digital download. They need to see you bought the correct edition. So there is no
Nah,
way out of spending that money.
that's a
Also,
joke.
student loans in the States right now, the interest rate is at about 6.7%. And your student loan can never be forgiven, never be forgotten, no matter if you die or file bankruptcy. Well, actually, if you die, then that's the only way your student loan is forgiven. But there is no certain amount of years that can pass, like in the UK, what is it, 30? In the US, your student loans are never forgiven, no matter what you do. There is a 1% success rate of student loan forgiveness, and that is basically because you became a vegetable in an assisted living facility, and your parents and family are truly so impoverished that they cannot pay it. That's it. That's the only way out of your student loans.
But hold on a minute. Didn't Biden forgive a bunch of student loans in like his last few months? I'm pretty sure I heard him, like there was some kind of student loan forgiveness. I do remember something like
In the
that.
States. Also in the States, student loan payments are not income based. So immediately after finishing college in 2008 with the great market crash, many of my friends, I had to drop out because I could no longer afford to finish, but my friends who did finish, their student loan payments were quickly at $600 to $700 a month while working $12 an hour jobs as social workers. So
Wow.
even into their late 30s, they're having to have multiple roommates to be able to afford those student loans. Not dissimilar to myself, but they doubled up their loans because they were able to actually finish, whereas I could no longer afford to continue. And I knew if I kept taking out loans, looking at the job market of 2008, I would not have had a good time.
Is it easy to get a scholarship? I'd probably want to explore that if I was in America, like as a kid going into college. Try and get a scholarship, man. Yeah. But you probably need really high grades, don't you? Like, or some other kind of sporting achievement. Maybe you're like on the college football team or something like that. Maybe you get a full ride.
It would not have been possible, and securing a job in that time frame with a degree was not any easier than having no degree. And since I had only myself to completely financially depend upon, I had to drop out of college and continue to try to keep a roof over my own head as the economy burned down around me. I have a friend who is 40 and went to medical school and had no family that was able to support those payments. And his current student loan payment is at $2,500 a month. That is for going to medical
Whoa.
school, which cost him over $300,000. Not any extras.
God damn. Sorry. Excuse my, like 2.5K. I couldn't, there's no way. In the UK, you just couldn't afford it. No chance. Like a doctor, a new doctor that qualifies probably isn't even netting 2.5K a month. Genuinely, doctors here get paid abysmally, just like everybody else here, by the way. 2.5K a month. monthly payment for his college degree. That's insane.
Some scholarships, that is just the cost of having an undergraduate degree and then a medical degree.
Oh
So
my
even though he
God.
makes what looks like decent money on paper, which is $150,000 to $160,000 out of medical school, you can imagine that $2,500 a month is enough to
Just
make sure that he's unable to move forward in his adult life on the timeline that most other generations got to do that, while doing something as selfless as becoming a doctor. In the
man.
UK, college, university, it cost $9,520 a year, capped. That's it. No extra. That's it.
And it used to be way cheaper. I've got a cousin who paid 500 a year. He graduated in like 2004, I believe.
I didn't know that, or actually, I guess it wouldn't have mattered if I knew that at 18, as I'm not a citizen. I wouldn't be able to access that rate. But boy, does that stink to hear, knowing how much I wanted to have a higher education and simply could not because of affordability. And what you charged for a year is what I had to pay for a semester. And that's not even mentioning the fact that you do student loan forgiveness after 30 years, and that the UK does have income-based payments, and there's two payment options. Well, again, the
Man, this is really making it's making me think. It's really making me think. By the way, guys, if you I started the newsletter, which is basically me talking about moving to the States, all of the thoughts and the processes. I get really personal, reveal a lot of things that I can't speak about on YouTube. I will pin the comment in the comment section. But yeah, this is really giving me food for thought, man, for sure.
UK wins, and America continues to dumb itself down on purpose. Now let's talk about unexpected expenses. Childcare, pet care, things like that. I don't have a child. I could never afford that in America. Are you kidding? And considering I grew up with school shootings, why would I want to do that? I've never been in the state of mind to be able to think about why that'd be a good idea because of healthcare, housing, school shootings, all that. So in the UK, childcare obviously is far more affordable with your nursery school programs and how
It's still expensive though. My friend pays 1,200 a month for 3 days of childcare, which is expensive. It's pricey. In Germany, it's peanuts compared to the UK. I believe in Germany it's like 500 a month.
those feed into your primary schools. In the U.S., the I had a friend when her kids were toddlers, daycare while she worked as a single mom with three kids. Two of them were still in daycare. That price was $3,000 a month. She made $4,000 a month. I don't know how she balanced it, but somehow she did, working 5 days a week. And I have never seen someone be more exhausted. Over here, pet
Three
insurance,
grand.
which was really cool to learn about.
Honestly, if it's 3 grand a month, you might as well not work, really. Look after your own kids, I guess. Yeah, if it's going to take 75% of your salary.
Yes, we have pet insurance in the States, but basically it's like human insurance. It costs a lot and barely covers anything. You might get a yearly discount on when you take your cat in for a physical, but that's about it. You're still going to pay thousands of dollars for dental or any surgeries that they might need, and they love using those pre-existing health conditions as an excuse, just like they used to do for human insurance. In the UK, learning about pet insurance and discovering what it actually covers has blown my mind. Not only do you do human healthcare better, you also do pet healthcare better. And your vet visits, oh my God, taking my cats to the vet is a fraction of the price of what it was in the States. And they're amazing. The vets are amazing here. Again, I love everything about here, down to how
It's a cute cat. Is that a British short hair? It might
you
be.
treat my kitty cats. And the other big thing people like to talk about here, and I hear my cousin's kids talk about it because they're teenagers still and they don't quite get all the nuances to it, is that the US just pays higher salaries than the UK.
Which I think it does. Everybody that I know that lives in America makes way more than their contemporary over here. I can't speak for the taxation, but in terms of the actual salary, they're just so much higher.
You know, like the US is where you go to make your money. But let's break down the reality of what you walk home with. Because you see in the UK what your taxes are being taken out of the government, and you see what the taxes are in the States for income, and you think, wow, that's tragically unfair. But you don't have the same property tax, car tax, state tax, county tax, sales tax, income tax. So at the end of the day, even though I'm making slightly less on paper, when you see the number, if you do the exchange rate, the number is actually the same in the UK as what I was making in the US, except I actually get to walk home with more money. That's right. In the UK, I get to walk home with more disposable income than I did in the US.
Oh, look, maybe in her case that is, but that's very rare. Like literally every job I've Googled the salaries for, the US just wins quite handily. I'm very surprised, even factoring in the exchange rate. Like, my old job, which I speak about on Substack, I was making 37,000 a year pounds, which is 49K. The US equivalent at the FTC was making 108K. So we're talking more than double, like more than double. So I don't know. I guess maybe the expenses, but I don't know if it would make it the same. I don't know.
It's like a magic trick, but instead of a rabbit disappearing, it's your savings. So many Americans like to say the British are just so much more heavily taxed than the US, and that's not freedom. But I have a list right here. Let's talk about it again. Once you add in the federal tax, state tax, social security tax,
But that depends where you live. Texas has no state income tax, no?
Medicare tax, private insurance premiums, ooh, those are fun, co-pays, deductibles, and random fees that appear like cryptic messages in the universe. Your take-home pay is better in the UK here, and you can predict your budget around your health care. Whereas in the States, even though you're paying 4 times as much for your health care, you just have to pray nothing happens, and you never actually need that health care. The British system looks like a dull filing cabinet when it comes to taxes. America looks like a slot machine where the house always wins. Now let's discuss rent and housing costs.
The big one, the one I've been waiting for. Let's go.
My rent in Los Angeles was $37.50 a month, plus
God,
about 300 in utilities.
what
Now,
for?
before you say that's because of your air conditioner, I want to preface this with saying I didn't have air conditioning in Los Angeles, and the winters were clearly more mild than here, yet my utility bill
37.50.
was far more expensive.
Oh my
My rent
God.
here in London is £3,150 a month, and my utilities have been running about £100 a month. So already, London is significantly cheaper, even adjusted with the exchange rate, than it was in the States. Now, if we compare my college town, it was oddly more expensive, but secretly. My first apartment in 2005 was $330 a month, which was not the average, it was a still.
Wow.
My last apartment before I left that town was $700 a month, but my utility bills would consistently be $500 to $700 a month. And this is
Jeez.
2005 to 2009. That's not adjusted for inflation. And that's because my college town only had one power provider and they run a monopoly on the prices. So there's nothing you can do to make your utility bill any cheaper, despite covering your windows in plastic and insulation and curtains, trying to save everything you can. Your utilities are far more expensive.
I would love to know what kind of property she was renting in LA to be paying 37.50. I mean, surely it was like a decent sized condo, like a 2-bed, 3-bed condo or something like that. Like 4K is a lot of money to spend on rent.
Now, if you compare Darby to Evansville, Darby is significantly cheaper when it comes to rent, and I've included a graphic to show that. And you also have to take into account in both of those cities, in Evansville as well as Los Angeles, you have to have a car. There is quite literally no other way around it. So on top of your rent, you also have to pay the expenditures for transportation. Whereas here, I have legs, and those work pretty good so far. In Los Angeles, my cost of surviving was roughly, let me look at the graph here, $6,620 a month. And adjusted for the exchange rate right now, that is roughly £5,000. And that's before
Man.
having any fun, if you can afford it. In London, my total bills are about $4,200 a month. And with the exchange rate, that is, let me look, $4,785 a month. Now, I
And
didn't.
even that's pretty on the high side. Maybe she's got a family. Maybe this is her and a partner, perhaps. Like for a single person, they probably aren't spending 4K. Like, yeah.
Expect London to be cheaper than Los Angeles. They are two major metropolitan cities in the world. But I was shocked to find that London is cheaper. So, which country is more expensive? Well, America. You have to pay for the right to even breathe. Whereas here, you can go get the A&E and be allowed to breathe without giving a credit card down.
She's funny, man. She's funny, but she's making some very, very good points. And she's making me really think and consider, because I think I'm getting a bit blinded by the higher salary, the bigger properties, the quality of life, the options, the food that you can get that you can't get here, things like that. I'm getting kind of blinded by it, but the cost of living, unless I'm really careful in where I choose to stay, like by choosing the state that has no state income tax, that where the costs are lower or as low as can be. Like if I move somewhere, like LA, which I'm not going to do because I know it's expensive, but I could end up spending way more than I spend here, even accounting for the higher salary. So yeah, it's given me a lot of food for thought. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.